Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. Before we get started with the show, I have a question for you. Are you a busy solopreneur struggling to find the time to consistently post to your social accounts? Well, the Scrivener Solutions team and I are introducing Scrivener Social, the easy-to-use social media scheduling platform paired with all of our workflows. It simplifies the entire posting process, saving you time and boosting your social media marketing efforts. Here's how it works. First, you subscribe to Scrivener Social, choosing the support level that best fits your needs. Second, we have onboarding calls to help you set up your account and give you the guidance for streamlining your posting process. Third, you implement your plan using our workflows to get more out of your social media marketing. Now, you could continue to do it alone, being frustrated and feeling guilty that you never get around to posting to your social accounts for your small business. Or you could save time, energy, and frustration by using an easy-to-use social scheduling platform backed by a support team that helps you streamline the whole process. You deserve a system that makes posting to your social media faster and more efficient. Go to scrivenersocial.com and subscribe today. Now, on to the show. Hi there, and welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here with me today because you're in for a special treat. Today, Mike Brennan is joining me, author of Make Fun a Habit, the Creative PLAYbook for making life and work fun again. Mike isn't your typical creative consultant and communicator. He's a passionate advocate for reigniting the lost art of fun and creativity. Mike's expertise goes beyond the pages of his book. He's helped renowned clients like Heineken and Chase Bank infuse creativity, innovation, and fun into their work. His art graces prestigious spaces like the Ronald McDonald House and the I.D.E.A Museum in Mesa, Arizona. What sets Mike apart is his commitment to helping individuals and organizations harness the transformative power of creativity. With a unique daily creative habit process honed over a decade, he empowers people to seamlessly integrate innovation into their routines, making life and work more vibrant and fulfilling. Through his words, art, actions, and unwavering dedication to the cause, Mike inspires us all to make fun not just a habit, but a way of life. I highly recommend his book, Make Fun a Habit, and I'm super excited for you to meet Mike. So let's hop right into our conversation, shall we? Welcome, Mike. I am so delighted that you're on the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, it was just a few weeks ago, not even, but I was scrolling through my Instagram feed and there you were with your book and it's called Make Fun a Habit, and I just immediately stopped and I had to have it. the this podcast is called, Live Full, Work Fun. And then when I came across this book, I just thought, wow, I'm so excited and I'm so glad to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you.
And before we get started in talking about Make Fun a Habit, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of what I do, because that's usually what the question is, right? Like, who are you? What do you do? So Mike Brennan, and I'm currently in New Jersey. That's where I live. And I say that I am a creator and communicator that tells stories on pages and stages. And people then go, cool. Well, what does that mean? And I say, okay, well, on the creator side, it has to do with visual art. That's my background. So graphic design and also illustration. And I do live event sketching. So I'll go to events and sketch what's happening in real time and do storytelling through those sketches. And then on the communicator side, I do speaking and coaching and communication around creativity and play and fun, and really trying to get people to re-engage with those things a lot of times, rediscover, because that was my own journey, was one of trying to rediscover these things. When you're a kid, these things come naturally. And somewhere along the way, we get responsible and practical, and life gets hard sometimes, and we lose these things. And so I really try to come alongside people, both individually and as well as organizations, and lead people through some trainings and through some communication around creativity, play, and fun.
Excellent. I have so many questions going
Sure.
around in my head, but I'm just going to dive right in on, for the most part, is a 4-letter word for a lot of people.
Yes.
Just like what you just said, it's like when we were kids, play was instilled in our daily life. But then when we become adults, it's like we have to be a tad miserable to be responsible.
Right.
So, how does Make Fun a Habit address the balance between responsibility on one hand and embracing a carefree approach to life?
Yeah. It's funny because I don't think, even if I were to say, look, push really heavily into fun, people are not going to start shirking their responsibilities. And I'm of course not saying don't be practical, don't be responsible by any means. And so I don't really think I have to push too hard on that front, because there's something already in us that goes, I can't do that, especially when there's, finances on the line and responsibilities of caring for other people in our lives and those kind of things. Most people don't have an issue with that. The issue comes with the fun part and the play part and the creativity part, because those are things that we've been taught, if they come as a reward at the end of when we do all the hard work, when we work, and then we retire, and then we can take that vacation that we dreamed about for years. Then we can do the things that we all really want to spend our time doing. And, I wrote this book kind of as just a response to questioning my own life, some areas where I saw that fun had escaped and play had escaped. And I said, really, the presenting question here is, what if this was fun? And not everything inherently is fun, right? There are certain things that we're going to look at and go like, oh, great, I'm doing my taxes. That sounds like lots of fun, right? I mean, unless you're an accountant or somebody who's really into numbers, that does not sound like fun. But even in those moments, I'm saying, how can we inject some fun into that? How can we maybe gamify it, right? So that we're making this little competition with ourselves to see maybe how quickly we can do something, or how accurately we can do it. Maybe it's putting on a playlist for music in the background that helps us kind of do a little, crazy dance as we're doing something that we have to do with our minds, right? There are all sorts of ways that we can approach something that, it may sound silly saying that, but if we actually started to implement even just a small amount of that daily, then we could actually see ourselves opening up to looking for more fun in places that we wouldn't normally find it. And also, I think, expecting that it's possible, because that's really where I think a lot of this falls apart is we just, like you said, we're supposed to be adults. We're supposed to be responsible. It's serious business, and then especially in today's society and the culture we're in right now and the things going on in the world, there's a lot of heaviness. There's a lot of darkness. And so it's not ignoring that, not by any means, but there's also something at play here where I think what you focus on, you attract more of. And if we're going to focus more on this is hard, life is difficult, I have to do a lot of things I really don't want to do, then that's what we're going to see more of. But on the other hand, if we invite more play, if we invite more fun and some more moments where we can, again, rediscover, uncover some of these things in our days, then we start looking for more of those things as well and start seeing more. And I think that changes our overall outlook and makes us more open, So I would rather live that way. I don't know about you, right?
Definitely. That's something that I had transitioned into a work from anywhere type of lifestyle and travel, and figuring out how can you work from practically anywhere. Not that it's not a challenge, but it's kind of fun figuring it all out. And can you give some examples of, like, within your own life? You had said that life wasn't as fun anymore. What was it like then, and how is it now?
Yeah, and I think there are certainly seasons, right? I have had seasons in my life where I really battled and wrestled with some mental health things like depression and anxiety. And if I'm not careful, I can certainly slip back into those things. And even within creativity, my job being creative in and of itself, people would think, well, you automatically have an avenue in which it's more fun than somebody else who's not doing creative things for a living, right? But it's a double-edged sword there because on one hand, you're using your creativity, making your livelihood, which is great because you feel like you have an avenue for those things. A lot of times you don't have the place to really express yourself in the midst of that because it's client work, right? It's work that you're being hired for somebody else to carry out their messaging, their projects. And if you don't have a place where you're figuring things out for yourself personally, then it can leave you feeling very unfulfilled and feeling like frustrated, honestly, because you're trying to inject that into the client work, which is not a place where it belongs. So, for me, realizing that some of those things have been points at which I've wrestled with, this isn't fun, right? There's nothing fun about depression. There's nothing fun about anxiety. There's nothing fun about frustration. And even in being an entrepreneur, owning my own business, there's this sense of you're always looking to build and scale, and there's always something you're working on. And, when you're kind of in that quote solopreneur type of environment where everything rests on you, it can be very just challenging to make sure that you're not always just pushing towards achievement and pushing towards unlocking that next level. And so recognizing that there's always going to be a future that you're pushing towards, but how do I actually sit in the now, in the today, right? It's the now over the next. How can I sit here and actually celebrate some of the things that are going on, that have gone on, so I don't brush past them and keep in this churning mode where eventually I'm going to burn out? And so asking that question of going like, how can I sit in today, celebrate, right? And celebrate has to do with fun and play. And I have struggled with that because I'm always thinking as a creator, what's next, what's new, what's possible. And so for me to put in some parameters for myself and some routines that make me stop and go, what is it that I have to celebrate today? What is it that I can ask about this day, right now, right here, that is actually fun, that I can engage with so that I'm not living in tomorrow, but I'm actually fully present in this moment right now. Even here with you on this podcast going, I'm here. I'm not anywhere else. My mind is not elsewhere. I'm not thinking about the things I have to do, later today, next week, next month, anything else. I'm here with you, enjoying this moment, having fun on this podcast.
Excellent. Thank you. I love how you can just disengage and then be focused in the moment. Are there other types of advice that you could give to focus in the moment, or activities that we should do to be creative, to foster that creativity?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of this stems back to, I came across a journal. It was called the 5-Minute Journal, and it has to do with practicing gratitude. And I was thinking to myself, at first, what am I really going to write in this journal? I mean, you struggle with thinking, okay, I'm going to practice gratitude. So I'm going to get up and be like, I'm thankful for my bed. I'm thankful for coffee. I'm thankful, right? Like all the things that seem silly and trite. And you're like, is this a waste of my time? But I realized that as I kept with it, right, and made it a habit and a routine, and for me, those are the things that help me, right? Habits and routines are things that give structure and form. They don't keep me in a box and say, well, you can't now be creative because of these things. But it actually is a foundation in which then I can be creative on top of that. And so, engaging with this journal, start writing those things in the beginning because that's all you can think of. But then a funny thing happens is as you're looking for these things throughout your day to write about, to be thankful, it's top of mind. You're going into your day, you're setting intention. And I found that it was a lot easier for me to find those moments and to also celebrate small moments that would have slipped by normally. For instance, if I went out into my day and I had a conversation at a store someplace, And it was maybe a quick 2-3 minute conversation, but it was a nice touch point with somebody else. I would have probably forgotten about that with all the other things going on in my day. But because I'm thinking about what are the things I'm grateful for, well, I'm grateful for those little moments that, honestly, the little moments are the big moments, because they're the ones that a lot of times teach us things and show us things if we're paying attention. And so for me to be able to stop and think about that moment, think about that connection, write it in that journal, and I can actually go back to it and reference it. And because I've written it, it's locked into my memory a lot better than if it was something else that just kind of slipped in and out with all the rest of the things in my day. And so having intention for me is important as I go into my day. I created a daily creative habit creativity journal, which is based off of that other journal that I spoke about. This being something that's centered around creativity, so that we say, okay, I'm getting up today. What is it that I want to create? And then having intention around that. And at the end of the day, revisiting it and going, okay, did I do what I said I was going to do? What did that look like? What did I learn? And how can I now move into tomorrow successfully? And so those things have been really helpful for me to be able to check in with myself. Because if I don't have those kind of tools, if I don't have those kind of systems and habits in place, then it's very easy for me to just get lost in the flow and honestly sometimes drift. And then you wake up and you're like, how did I get here? Like, what's happening? I'm not even aware of a lot of things that have happened in my life that I can be thankful and grateful for. I'm not even aware of the moments where I could have had fun, but I've simply just kept my head down and kept on task and let that be the driving force instead.
I love that you take sparks of joy and write them down, and it just mushrooms into other things.
Absolutely.
Have you ever had people or someone tell you, it's like, hey, I'm not creative. I'm not a creative person. I don't even know where to start. And why is it even important? I have not a creative bone in my body. What do you say to them?
Yeah, I honestly, I have those conversations probably daily. And I say, I believe everyone is creative. We just need to open up what the definition of creativity, what that is. And what I mean by that is, yes, people say, I can't draw a stick figure, I can't paint, I'm not good at music or dancing or theater or any of those kind of things. And really what they're saying is, I'm not good at the performing arts or the fine arts, right, is what we call them. But creativity is so much bigger than that, because creativity could show up for somebody in how they organize things. It can show up in how they cook a meal. It can show up in how they dress themselves, in how they decorate their homes, in how they decide to live their lives. There are a myriad of ways that creativity can show up, but if we're not assigning that to the definition of creativity, we can miss it and therefore think that we're not creative. And so I love to have those conversations with people to go, okay, let's blow up the definition of creativity here. Let's make it much wider and much more accessible, because really it comes down to how you see things and what you do as a result of them, right? It comes down to how are you problem solving something, whether it's for yourself or someone else. That's where creativity kind of comes into gear and really gets some traction, because then we're applying it to something that's real world. And we do that all day long. And so I think it's helping people realize that we all are creative, and then helping them see how it fits into their particular styling or expression. And then if they realize that that's creativity, then they can be more intentional about doing more of that. And I think that's when you really start to pour gas on it, and it starts to flourish for people, because they're like, okay, I guess I am creative. And it takes a long time to kind of undo that conditioning that we have, just even in our society, that says creativity is drawing, painting, music, that kind of thing, you know?
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's how we can make work fun, right? We can figure out that creativity piece for ourselves in whatever vocation we choose, and that we may shift because in life, because we're in different seasons, and we may find different careers that motivate us. Now, Mike, you've worked with some companies, haven't you, to help bring creativity into their work culture?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What does that look like, and how that seems hard, because I have prior to my entrepreneurial journey, I worked in some stuffy
Hmm.
offices, and now I guess gray is a cool color to have, but it was gray walls and just very stuffy. How do you instill creativity and in that without making it look like you're goofing off all the time?
Right. Which is the challenge, right? Because so many of us think, well, fun is child's play. It's silly, it's frivolous. And I think, again, we need to open up our definitions here and realize that, fun and play are not a luxury. They're actually a necessity. Because if we just keep pushing, we are going to burn out, or we're going to end up in a place where we disengage just simply because we cannot keep that level of intensity up. And sometimes people disengage and then go, I'm just leaving altogether, right? They may leave a corporation or a job because of a myriad of reasons, but one of them being, I'm feeling burned out. I'm feeling maxed out here. And there's no place for me to feel like I'm truly engaged or truly invested. I'm simply going through the motions of the machine and then getting chewed up and spit out the other side, right? And I've experienced that. So I understand that. But I think it's, coming into a place and saying, look, everyone wants to give lip service to the fact to say, I value creativity. I value innovation. I value, collaboration on teams. And I value people's contributions to the work environment and what they bring personally as a, how they're wired, how they think, right? I think it's easy to pay lip service to that, but it's hard in a company when things are set up in such a way that it's always about the bottom line. It's always about efficiency. It's always about productivity. And those things aren't bad, certainly not, right? We need those things, but we also need to make sure that we have room for creativity, to be thinking about solutions that are outside the norms. So we're not just copying competitors. We're not just doing the same old thing, every single day, but we're starting to think different thoughts. We're starting to open ourselves up to what is possible and dream a little bit, honestly, within the context of the work that we do. And when we start to do that, it's funny, we start to get curious because we're invested, we're engaged. And when you're curious, and again, this isn't a work or a life thing, this is just a person thing, right? When you're curious, you really start to go, okay, I want to know more about this. I'm researching more. I'm starting to think about what this could look like. I'm starting to gather around me people who have done more of this type of work, maybe, or this type of thing that I'm curious about. And then you go into this kind of like exploration phase, right? Of going, what happens if? Let me try something. Let me test something. Let me iterate something, right? And then there's kind of like a shift into some more creativity where you're saying, oh, actually, okay, I'm taking my learnings from this exploration, and now I'm saying, well, what happens if then we combine these two things? What happens if we have a different context for something now, right? So you start to kind of get the juices flowing. You're starting to get excited about this. You're engaged, and then you're finding that you're actually playing in the process because it's like a sandbox. There's possibility. There's freedom. It's not somebody simply saying, here's something handed down from the top, go do this, check your boxes, and be done. There's room for us to actually get into the process and for us to benefit from it personally, but also professionally, because we're bringing our best selves. And so when I talk to companies and organizations and when I talk to teams, I'm really talking about that personal ownership over themselves, to have agency over themselves, right? So that they can show up like that. And yes, we're talking about it in the context of work, but it's also in the context of just your everyday life. Like if you showed up more engaged with yourself, with looking for play, with looking for opportunities to be creative, think about how that would affect your relationships. Think about how that would affect your home life. It would affect your work life, your office, the projects that you do, how you spend your time doing those things. Suddenly there's room for something bigger than we've experienced before, or maybe something we've settled for because someone has just simply given it to us as a role to perform.
I love that. In working in solving problems, it's not a straight black or white answer. You got to
Right.
solve a problem. And that to me seems quite creative because you don't know where the path is going to go. And I don't know if it is the same for you as it for me, but sometimes with different clients, you're down this one rabbit hole solving a problem for one client and discover solutions for a myriad of other things
Absolutely.
that uh, that's just so wonderful. And it really jazzes you that it's like and fuels your work. And I love what you said earlier is how you define creativity, because for me working in WordPress and uncovering different plugins and how they can cause problems and all of that, that doesn't seem too creative, but it an end result it is fabulous, because it is creative. It's how we solve problems.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the other things that you said reminded me of this is that, so for me, a lot of things happened in my personal journey, my personal artwork that I had done simply because I was trying to honestly fall back in love with some of these things after being in an environment where I was just part of that machine. And, I made this distinction of, okay, this is personal work, this is professional work. But creatively speaking, like, we don't operate like that, right? Like, you get ideas when you're in the shower, you get ideas when you're out walking the dog or something, right? And these moments that are, you maybe not quote on the clock, so to speak. And so acknowledging that creativity is much bigger than that. It's not in that time constraint. And also realizing that, like, we all need a place to be able to play and experiment without fear of judgment and without fear of, like, this isn't going to serve a client or this isn't right for this particular project. And so that's why I always encourage people, especially people who have a creative service profession, because all the creativity is going out towards everybody else. And again, you get in that frustrated place of, like, where's the place that I express mine? I'm doing this all day long for everybody else. I come home, I'm tired. Last thing I want to do is do my own stuff. So I just repeat this cycle. And I'm like, we need a place that we protect that's just ours, because if it's just ours, we get to determine what the parameters are. We get to determine what happens in that place, and we can play and make discoveries that then we can take back over into our profession. We can take back over into various places where we're trying to solve problems. And I think it's because we engage a different part of our brain in the process. We're not simply pushing, but we're playing. And when you're playing, you're having fun and you're open. You're not rigid and tense. And so I think you get to different solutions that you would not otherwise get to.
I love that. And recently, for me personally, I've gotten into weaving. That's just and it's totally different from what I do for work.
Mm-hmm.
But then I get people, it's like, well, how much would you charge for this, that, and the other? And I said, I am not selling this stuff. Now, my
Right.
husband might, but I'm just doing it for the pure joy. I do not, of course, any hobby that we may have, we could make it into a business. But then you might find yourself thinking about that and not loving the end result that got you started to begin with. So I chose as like, no, I'm just doing that to disengage from work and let my mind wander on different things. And another thing that I am one of those people that cannot draw a stick figure, but I have a goal that I would like to learn how to field journal and learn how to draw, and wherever I'm camped or what have you. It's a challenge and I get a little frustrated, but I haven't worked at it to get better. But do you encourage someone to learn a new trade or learn something that they've never done before that's separate? And why would that be beneficial?
Yes. And the short answer to that is because it keeps you in a place where you are engaged and realizing that you're not going to be a master out of the gate, right? And that's also an uncomfortable place to be, because we all want to be masters out of the gate. We want to go, I have a natural ability for this, and this was easy, and it was quick, and I'm seeing results right away. But that's honestly not how most things work. Sure, there are people who are talented in certain ways and they have a natural ability and gifting. But even drawing, the reason why people are better, so to speak, than you might be is because the hours that they put in, is because the training that they had, because of all the sketchbooks filled with wonky lines and weirdness and mistakes and all the things, because it's a process to work that out. And to be engaged with that process, regardless of if it's drawing, if it's some other activity that it has nothing to do with what you do for a living, I think it puts you in a place where you're learning, where you're growing, where you're adapting. And when we're doing those things, we're making discoveries. We're making discoveries not only about whatever that practice is that we're trying to do, we're making discoveries about ourselves. And those are the things that we're usually not thinking about. Like my creative journey, like, sure, it's been one of figuring out a style and figuring out subject matter and materials and all those kind of things. That's natural as a part of this, right? Because that's what you're engaging with. But the surprising thing for me was, this is making me remember some things about when I was a kid, of how fun this was and how I did these things because I just loved it. Or maybe it harkens back to something about like me playing video games when I was a kid, or looking at cartoons and comic strips. Like, there are all sorts of things that are important to me that sometimes I forget because it's not part of my regular existence, that engaging with these activities can kind of reintroduce or underline, underscore. It's really important that you have a place in your life you get to try some things or tinker, right? Because maybe every place else in your life, you don't have that ability to do that. And so learning something new gives you the freedom and the forum to be able to do that.
And sometimes tinkering in some realms is thought of as a waste of time, or it has a negative connotation. It's like, I'm just exploring and just seeing if this is going to work, if I'm going to like it. And I love that, that you had said reintroducing something from your past that you really like, video games or comic books, and bring that joy forward into your current life. I love that. I love that. Your book, I ordered it as soon as I saw it on Instagram, but I just got it yesterday and I haven't had a chance to read it. But I would love for you to tell us a little bit about how it's broken down. I glanced through it and it's almost like you could have like a 30-day challenge. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. First off, this book wasn't actually a thought until earlier this year. And what I mean by that is I didn't set out to go write a book about fun. It was in response to, again, some things in my own life of me going, where have I lost some fun? Where do I need to rediscover some of these things in my own life? And then going, okay, if I'm talking about these things because they're important, how is this going to be helpful for somebody else? Again, personally and professionally. And so the idea of the book is it's broken down into 30 small chapters where you can use this as a playbook, right? As a resource. And you can dive into it in any order that you want. If you're somebody who likes the chronological order of things, you can certainly go 1 through 30, but cover to cover. But if you want to jump in various places, you can do that. My hope is that it will be something that you return to because not everything always speaks to you exactly in the moment. There are times when you need to come back to something and it takes on a different context because of what's happening in your life at that particular point. And so the whole idea, though, is how can we make fun and looking for fun, making fun, a practical and yet accessible and yet creative activity. And so each chapter, I share some kind of story or illustration, and then I kind of unpack the big idea for that chapter. And then I give an exercise and say, put this into practice now, because it's not enough for us to just talk at a high level and go like, oh yeah, it's really important that, we learn how to collaborate with, people, or we learn how to, doodle. That's one of the chapters is about doodling, right? It's not enough to just talk about that. Like, let's actually put some action points in place so that we can start to apply it. And that's how I'm operating, right? I need somebody to inspire me, but then I also need somebody to give me a plan to put into place so I can carry out the things that they've inspired me to do. So it becomes something part of me. And so this whole book is laid out like that, with questions and with prompts, activities to help you bring yourself to the book and engage with the material that's there so that you can contextualize it for you. Because, like I said, not everybody's idea of fun is also going to be the same. What's fun for me, if you mentioned, video games or comic books or things like that, there are certain people who are listening right now who are going, that doesn't sound like fun. That sounds boring. That sounds like, I don't know, somebody else's version of fun, which is fine. But know your version of fun. Know how to access that and know how to be intentional about that. That's really what I'm talking about here in making fun a habit. And the habit part is repeating, right? It's a routine. It's a rhythm, so that we're not simply going, oh yeah, like once a year I take a vacation. And then that's kind of when I have a chance to kind of check out and play and do the things and go places and whatever. But the rest of the time I'm just like nose to the grindstone. I'm like, what would it look like for us to take small moments during every single day and figure out how to make them fun? Moments that maybe would seem to be wasted, like when you're in the store and you're online and it's a long line and you're just like, okay, I have to be here and I have a choice. I can get frustrated. I could just be impatient. I could be looking at tabloid headlines. I could be looking at my phone. I could be a million things we could be doing. But what if we said, how can I actually make that moment fun? Right? Like, is there someone around me that I can engage with in a conversation? Or if you're more introverted, maybe there's something else that you can do that is your version of fun. But realizing that's a moment of time that you can redeem towards that purpose, as opposed to just letting it go or wasting it.
I love that. We have the choice of making fun and having those little sparks of joy and embracing those. I love that. Mike, it has been a pleasure having you here today on the Live Full Work Fun podcast. And how can we stay connected with you?
Well, my main website is mikebrennan.me, M-E, and from there you can kind of get to all the resources, whether it's my various books or my services. There's drop downs in the menu there. If you're interested in the book specifically, you can go to makefunahabit.com. And there you can order a copy of the book. You can also get some free downloads. Like I set up a Spotify playlist that's free, and a coloring page and kind of a Mad Libs type of thing. And those are freebies for you to download. Really just giving people resources to say, we need to access fun from a variety of different contexts. And so let's help people as much as we can here. And so that's certainly a place where people can go to get those things.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike. I'll have all of those links down in the show notes, and I'm so glad that you joined me today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for joining me today, and I'd love for you to hop over to Facebook. Share what your biggest takeaway was from this episode in the Live Full Work Fun Facebook group. The link is right down there in the show notes. And you'll also find all of Mike's links, not only to his book, but also to his website and all his social accounts right there in the show notes. Again, I'm glad you were here with me today. And until next time, have a fantastic week. Live full and work fun. This episode has been brought to you by Scrivener Social, the easy-to-use social scheduling platform built for the busy solopreneur. You deserve a system that makes posting to your social media faster and more efficient. Go to scrivenersocial.com and subscribe today.